On in Numbers chapter 16. Numbers chapter 16, if you have the last week's handout 18. And does anybody remember where we were, what we were talking about last week?
Kadesh Barnea.
Kadesh Barnea.
The rebellion of Korah.
The rebellion of Korah.
Dathan, I don't know. The letter G.
Huh?
Letter G. Oh.
So we're talking about the rebellion of Korah, and so he's the main conspirator. Who are the other conspirators with this rebellion?
Dathan, Abiram,
Dathan, Abiram, and On. And then who else? Yeah, 250 princes, right? And so Korah, we found out that Korah is actually a first cousin of Moses and Aaron. And what was their issue?
Authority.
Authority, yes. Why? How could Moses and Aaron put themselves above the rest of us? We all can do that job, right? Well, probably Korah could do that job. Korah was actually in a very prominent position. It is believed that he was one of the men that held the Ark of the Covenant, moved the Ark of the Covenant. So he was actually probably the closest to the tabernacle that you could be without being a priest. But yet he wanted more. Tradition also has it that he was a very rich man. But he was questioning authority. Why can't I be it? Why is Moses and Aaron in that authority? Well, what is the reason for that? God appointed Moses for his position, and God appointed Aaron for being a high priest, right?
Right.
That's all there is to it. God is the one who appointed it. So here we have the rebellion of Korah. And so we've set up a scenario where Moses brought them all forward, and they all have their sensors to be able to go to test to see who's. They're going to have a little test to see who did God really appoint. Who did God really appoint? So that's where we're leaving off here. We're on letter F, guidelines for the contest. Guidelines for the contest. So, number one, if they live to an old age, what was going to happen?
There's no special calling from God.
Yeah, there was no special calling from God. So if all the people in the rebellion lived to an old age, there was no special calling in Moses and Aaron. And what happens? What's the other scenario?
If
If they die an unusual death, such as being swallowed up by the earth,
That's
that's a little unusual, right? It's not they got sick and coughed or something they've seen in the past year while they've been in the desert.
Sort of like giving them a real warning what's going to happen.
Yes. That's right. The earth will open up. It will swallow them up. And so the whole nation would know that Aaron has been specifically called of God. And so those were the guidelines of the contest. If you live to a record age, they were not called of God. If the earth swallows you up, the nation will know that they were called of God. So we pick up our story in Numbers chapter 16, verse 31. It came to pass as he made an end of speaking all these words, in other words, giving the guidelines for the contest, that the ground clave asunder that was under them, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up and their houses, and all the men that appertained unto Korah and all their goods, they and all that appertained to them went down alive into the pit, and the earth closed upon them, and they perished from among the congregation. God didn't wait very long. The rules were said, this is what's going to happen. There it is. The earth opened up, swallowed them up. Not only Korah and Dathan and Abram, but the families as well, and all their tents and belongings just swallowed up. And what do we notice also? The earth then closed upon it, like literally swallowed. It wasn't like we're going to see some sinkhole here where the sinkhole just opens up. But this seems to have just been opened up and closed shut. Just totally wipe them off the face of the earth. I know you're familiar with the sinkhole that happened in Sefner. That just has to speak clearly that this can happen. That God can choose wherever, whenever He wants to take somebody. And this is just totally unusual. You're familiar with the story where two brothers, right? Two brothers are in the house. Were they both sleeping? One was sleeping in his bedroom, and the other was in the room next door. Right, just outside the bedroom, and he hears a noise, and come to find out that his brother is just sucked into the earth through the sinkhole that has occurred, and never to be found again. And so here's the house, and then with the house removed, you can actually see the hole where he is, and there's no way they're never going to recover him.
They never found him.
Never going to recover him. So this is very unusual, and here this is a very unusual instance, right? That all these people that rebelled were swallowed up. And then you're familiar with Bowling Green, Kentucky, with the National Chevrolet Museum, right? Or Corvette Museum, National Corvette Museum, where the building was perfectly fine and took out 8 Corvettes. I understand they're going to rehab all of them.
Yeah.
They're going to rehab all of them. But
what was interesting about watching that on the news is they had the cameras going, you know, their surveillance cameras at night, and all of a sudden you could see the hole.
yeah.
It was really interesting. I thought, whoa!
So if you don't think God's still doing His work, He's still doing it, and He's using every method and His all the tools in the toolbox, right? Hopefully this catches people's attention. And then here's some video of some other sinkholes that happened around the world. Numbers chapter 26, verses 9 through 11. The sons of Eliab and Neamal and Dathan and Abiram. This is that Dathan and Abiram which were famous in the congregation. Everybody knows these guys, right? The other ones that got swallowed up. Who strove against Moses and against Aaron and the company of Korah when they strove against the Lord. And the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up together with Korah when that company died. What time the fire devoured 250 men, and they became a sign. Notwithstanding the children of Korah died none. And so what has occurred here? God made sure that the sign that they were going to see, everybody would know, and the legend would continue on, and everyone would point back to that fact. I have chosen Aaron to be my high priest. I am the one who appointed them. Stop questioning it. We're moving on. If you're going to rebel against it, something's going to happen to you. Now, what do you think about the families being involved in being swallowed up? What do you think about that?
Yes,
Not only
they
Korah.
were from some other family.
The fact that the wives and children were included in the awful judgment of God illustrates again the Old Testament principle of family solidarity and the collective punishment if not guilt of the offspring of those who sin against God. And so we're part of the family, right? Your family's all involved. But, you know, each individual is responsible for their own sins, so we must conclude that the families were also involved and collaborated with, you know, Korah and Dathan and Abiram. Now, interestingly, which conspirator is not mentioned? On. Why do you think that is? We don't even hear of On anymore. Why is that?
He went in.
Well, he's not mentioned as going in.
Did he go in?
Not mentioned. He's mentioned as a conspirator, and then when they're called for, they come for, and then when they're swallowed up, we just read all those verses that listed Dathan and Abiram, Korah, and their families. On, and then On's family is not mentioned. It disappears from Scripture. He's only mentioned, I think, at one time as being a conspirator. So he's not mentioned with those who receive judgment. So Jewish tradition has a story about this. Jewish tradition has a story about this. So we find some insights, and you know, it deals with On's wife. And also contrasts On's wife with Korah's wife. So tradition states that On, the son of Pelet, was saved by his wife. And this is apparently some sort of discussion that occurred between him and her. She said to him, "What matters it to you, whether the one remains leader or the other becomes leader? You will be but a follower." So in other words, she knows that her husband's involved in this conspiracy, and she just lays it out where, okay, Moses is the leader now, right? Now, if Moses is removed, Korah will be the leader, you're still in the same position. What does it matter who's the leader? Right? That's her her objection. He said, "What can I do? I have taken part in their council, and they have sworn me to be with them." In other words, he signed up. He's a part of it. He's already moved this conspiracy forward. He's mobilized families and men and to go forward with this, and he's in this position. You know, you're right, I don't know, I'm too entrenched in this. I've already committed, I'm a part of it, right? And so that's where he's coming from. How can I even get out of this if I even wanted to? She said, "See here, I will save you." She gave him wine to drink, intoxicated him, and laid him down within the tent. Then she sat down at the entrance and loosened her hair as if she were bathing. So whoever came to summon him saw her and retreated. When On awakened, Korah and his company had already been swallowed in the bowels of the earth. The 250 notables have been burnt, and On, the son of Pelah, was saved from being swallowed up alive or from being burned to death. So apparently, from tradition, right, his wife saves him by making sure he can't leave the tent. Gets him drunk, gets him intoxicated, he's just falling asleep in tent. You know, the other conspirators, come on, let's go. Comes to the tent, finds her apparently in a modest position, loose hair, apparently maybe just bathing. Apparently that was, we probably should stay away. Right? By that time, God has done his destruction, right? And here, On wakes up, and it's all done, and she has saved.
She saved herself.
Saved herself, saved her family, saved her husband. All right, very fascinating. Meanwhile, tradition also says Korah's wife also was a part of a conversation between Korah and Korah's wife. All right. So Korah's wife joined in and said to Korah, "See what Moses has done? He himself has become king. His brother he appointed high priest." Here we have nepotism here, right? His brother's sons he has made the vice high priest. And if the next one comes, then let him be priest. If the tithe is brought, which belongs to you, he orders, give a tenth part thereof to the priest. Moreover, he has had your hair cut off and makes sport of you as though you were dirt, for he was jealous of your hair. So here we have, look, Korah, Moses has made himself the leader. He has now appointed his brother to be the high priest. He is now demanding a tenth of all that you earn to be given to the priest, which is Moses and Aaron's family. He's humiliating you. What are you going to do about it, Korah? So here we have a wife that's encouraging the rebellion. He said to her, but he has done likewise. He's done all this. She replied, since all the greatness was his, he said also, let me die with the Philistines. So we have here a wife who's encouraging this rebellion. Apparently Korah may have come home one day, just kind of frustrated and vented his feelings to his wife. His wife then causes momentum to occur. And now Korah and his family is now going down the wrong path. Now we have other families that are entrenched into this conspiracy as well. And so we have the tale of two wives. One who protects her husband and one who destroys her husband and her family. From these two stories, tradition states that Proverbs 14:1 is based off of them. It's based off these two wives. Proverbs 14:1, every wise woman buildeth her house, but the foolish plucketh it down with her hands. Every wise woman buildeth her house, but the foolish plucketh it down with her hands. So, tradition says the wise woman refers to who? On's wife. The foolish woman refers to who? Korah's wife. So apparently this proverb is based off of this story. this tradition about these two wives. So, wives, you have a huge impact on your husband. You need to be careful how you use it. Very, very huge impact. You can save a family. You can destroy your family. Mom, extremely godly lady, honestly has saved the Mass family, right? With her heart for bringing, my family was unsaved. And so the Lord got to Mom, and then Mom wanted to lead everybody else in the family to the Lord. So our family was going to go down a wrong path. And it took 180 degrees because God used Mom. Mom allowed God to use her. So, a godly woman can save a family. An ungodly woman can destroy a family. So ladies, use your powers for good and not for evil. You have a lot of power, a lot of influence.
Being nice with words.
So do that. Protect your husbands. Give wise counsel to your husbands. Be prayerful. Be prayer warriors for your husbands.
What if your husband doesn't listen?
Keep going. Keep going.
Be in prayer. Be in prayer because your husband has to face God, and so God can change the heart.
Yes.
So you can be a prayer warrior, and that's the way you can change.
That's why you didn't tell them, you tell her.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. And so I thought this was very fascinating about the story, this On's wife and Korah's wife, and the impact they had. And so On's family continues on. All right, did all of Korah's family die? No. Why do you say that?
One of them becomes a priest.
Huh?
Because one of his descendants becomes a priest.
Well, Numbers 26, verse 11, we just read that, says, notwithstanding, the children of Korah died not. The children of Korah died not. So here we have this hole that opens up, the earth swallows up. Supposedly Korah's family, Dathan's family, Abiram's family, swallows up their entire family into the ground. Except we find here, apparently part of Korah's family did not all die, did not all get swallowed up. And this is an amazing story in itself. Because we could see through this story God's grace and redemption. It's just truly amazing. They deserve to die. They deserve to be swallowed up and removed from existence, and their story become legend that this is what you shouldn't be doing. But yet God had mercy on a portion of Korah's family. What famous descendant of Korah, and he didn't become a priest, that's an area here, will become a judge? What famous descendant of Korah will become a judge?
Samuel.
Samuel comes from the line of Korah.
That's why God said their family because of Samuel.
This is one reason, yes. And you know what? Korah's desire would be wanted to be a leader in the nation. Well, God gave him his request several generations later through Samuel. Right? Through Samuel. And if you're interested in the genealogy, 1 Chronicles chapter 6, verse 22 through 28, we find that this passage establishes that Samuel's father, Elkanah, was a descendant of Korah, who was in turn a descendant of Kohath, who was in turn a descendant of Levi. Thus we can say with scriptural certainty that Samuel was a member of the Kohathite branch of the tribe of Levi and of the sons of Korah. So Samuel was a prophet and a judge, and Korah would have been proud of his descendant. However, Korah stepped out of line and was removed from existence. What about the rest of Korah's descendants? What positions did the sons of Korah hold later in history?
Some of his daughters of the
They're going to have some very special positions in the tabernacle. So not only were they permitted to live, but they were given back their God-ordained place in the community. And of course, we see a beautiful picture of God's grace and forgiveness. God not only restored what a generation had once disdained, but also had something brand new made something brand new out of their lives and those who would long benefit from their spiritual legacy. So you see, first of all, they were gatekeepers. Gatekeepers. By the time of David, they held that special entitled position as gatekeepers. 1 Chronicles chapter 9, verse 17. And the porters were Shallum and Achem and Telem and Aham, and their brethren Shallum was the chief, who hitherto waited in the king's gate eastward. They were porters in the companies of the chief children of Levi, and Shallum, the sons of Korah, the son of Abishai, the son of Korah, and his brethren of the house of his father, the Korahites, were over the work of the service, keepers of the gates of the tabernacle, and their fathers, being over the host of the Lord, were keepers of the entry. So here we have this rebellious family, a couple generations, 2 generations later, are now the gatekeeper to the tabernacle. Pretty awesome, huh? God's mercy. Reset them up. Put them back in position. We also see another significant place that they were in. They were singers. Singers. 1 Chronicles chapter 6, verse 31. And these are they whom David set over the service of song in the house of the Lord. After that the ark had rest. And they ministered before the dwelling place of the tabernacle of the congregation with singing, until Solomon had built the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. And then they waited on their office according to their order. And these are they that waited with their children, of the sons of the Kohathites, Haman, a singer, the son of Joel. And so it lists several sons. And later on in verse 37, we see the son of Abishai, the son of Korah. And here we have the sons of Korah are part of the singers. 1 Chronicles chapter 9, verse 31. And Mattahah, one of the Levites, who was the firstborn of Shallum, the Korahite, had the set office over the things that were made in the pans, and their brethren of the sons of the Kohathites were over the showbread to prepare it every Sabbath. And these are the singers, chief of the fathers of Levites, who remaining in the chambers were free, for they were employed in that work day and night. These chief fathers of Levites were chiefs throughout their generations. These dwelt at Jerusalem. So the sons of Korah, the descendants of Korah, became singers. And would you believe, have you ever noticed in your Bible, to turn to Psalms, say Psalms 42, for instance. Psalms 42. If you see the top, huh? Well, it says, well, here on chapter 42, to the chief physician Michelle, the sons of Korah. And so Psalms 42 through 49, Psalms 84 through 88 are all dedicated to the sons of Korah. Can you imagine that? The sons of Korah led a rebellion. The whole entire family was going to be wiped off the face of the earth. And God preserved a portion of the family. And now they're giving praises to God.
Because he has plans already.
He already has plans, yeah. Now, I don't know if you've read, we're all familiar with hymns. And there's stories behind each hymn, why they're written, right? And many of them come from utter devastation. And we get a beautiful song of God's grace and redemption. You should read those stories. I had a lady from our church give me this book on the complete book of hymns, inspiring stories, about 600 hymns and praise songs. And just the awesomeness of the story behind the song is as incredible as the song. It just puts that much more meaning to the song. And something that you should research, your favorite hymns, find out why was it written? Why does it have so much meaning? Amazing Grace. He was a slave coming over on a ship. And here he's singing Amazing Grace. Didn't the ship almost sink, shipwreck? And God saved him. Amazing Grace. Not for someone to be in that position to be still praising God and coming out of that. Just amazing. But here we're talking about Psalms, and Psalms are songs, right? And here we have them. Psalms 42 through 49, Psalms 84 through 88 are all dedicated to the sons of Korah. Now, you understand the rebellion that just occurred. They were facing certain death to be swallowed up from the earth, to be wiped off the face of the planet. And here we have songs. These psalms should have more meaning to us now that we know why they're dedicated to them. Some of the Psalms of Korah contain such words as the deer panteth for the stream, so panteth my soul after you. This is not the same King James Version. Psalms 42:1. Psalms 84:1. How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord. Psalms 87 verse 3. Glorious things of you are spoken. Just beautiful things. We're going to go to Psalms 46. Psalms 46. Some of these psalms dedicate Korah. You can see the rebellion in it, right? Singing about the rebellion and God's grace. Psalms 46 in particular. Verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Imagine the trouble. This word trouble here, we may just read it in trouble. Korah had real trouble. Verse 2, therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed. This is not just some vain words. The earth did remove, and the family was swallowed up. Right? Therefore will we not fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. Selah. When you read these words, go back and imagine what Korah, the family of Korah, was doing. They were being dragged into this conspiracy, and God said there's going to be an unusual death and swallowed up, and you see your family going in, and you are preserved. You are preserved. And here's these songs coming from that. So these are not just some vain words with the earth opening up. The earth did open up, or the mountains were moved. Verse 4, there is a river, the streams thereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, she shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. God did help them. God did help a portion of Korah's family and preserve them. Verse 6, the heathen raged, the kingdoms were removed. He uttered his voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge, Selah. Imagine this, you're realizing the conspiracy that's taking place, you're realizing you are going against a sovereign God, and you realize you're in the wrong place and you need to turn to Him. He is my refuge. He is my refuge. The heathen raged. Probably their family members are the heathen, right? They're the ones that are raging. And the earth melted, opened up. The Lord of hosts is with us. Have confidence in that time when the earth is opening up and you're still looking to God. Come, behold the works of the Lord, what desolations He hath made in the earth. He maketh wars to cease at the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariot in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Of course, this was written several generations after the rebellion, so it's including several things that have occurred, wars and the heathen and kingdoms rising and falling, and they're seeing God's grace and mercy through it all. But they can relate to it personally, back to their ancestors being pulled into the earth. And here at the end, the Lord of hosts is with us. He's with us. He's with us when the ground's falling beneath our feet. He's with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah.
What does Selah mean?
Amen.
It means meditate on this. It's a Hebrew word that says meditate on this.
So when you read through these psalms that are dedicated to Korah, think about Korah, the rebellion of Korah, and see what you can dig out of the meaning there. So it should have a lot more impact knowing the story behind it. And knowing the story behind the other psalms, research your favorite one and find out who was the author, why was it written. I mean, a lot of the hymns were written by a blind lady. You can even see. It's amazing. All right, continuing on. Any questions or comments? All right, so the earth has opened up, right? So that's where we are. Verse 34, and all Israel that were round about them fled at the cry of them, for they said, lest the earth swallow us also. This makes sense, right? If you were there, you're witnessing this confrontation, the earth then opens up, what are you going to do? You're running the other way. And so that's where they were running. They were running. Maybe God gave some of these sons of Korah some extra speed. But the nation is fleeing, getting away. Verse 35, and there came out a fire from the Lord and consumed the 250 men that offered incense. So now we have God taking care of those 250 leaders one by one by one, or all one time. But anyway, was targeting those and not the families. Psalms 106, verse 16. They envied Moses also in the camp, and Aaron the saint of the Lord. And the earth opened and swallowed up Dathan and covered the company of Abram. And a fire was kindled in their company, and the flame burned up the wicked. All right, so the nation has fled. The 250 leaders have been killed. The families of Korah, Abiram, and Dathan have been swallowed up. So we move on to verse 36. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Eleazar the son of Aaron the priest, that he take up the censers out of the burning, and scatter thou the fire yonder, for they are hollow. The censers of the sinners against their own souls, let them make them broad plates for a covering of the altar, for they offered them before the Lord, therefore they are hollowed, and they shall be a sign unto the children of Israel. And Eleazar the priest took the brazen censers wherewith they that were burnt had offered, and they were made broad plates for a covering of the altar, to be a memorial to the children of Israel, that no stranger, which not of the seed of Aaron, come near to offer incense before the Lord. That he be not as Korah and as his company, as the Lord said unto him by the hand of Moses. Remember, the 250 were holding censers. They were taking the incense into the tabernacle, what they're used for. The 250 remained, and at the time when they were trying to figure out who was supposed to be leader, supposedly they would be able to walk right in and present the incense before the Ark of the Covenant. But now these guys are all burnt up. And so now there's 250 censers that are lying around, and God commands Eleazar to go pick them up and do what with them?
From a cover for the ark.
Not for the ark,
No,
the altar.
altar.
So they were all beaten down, and then they were used to cover the altar. And, well, the altar was already bronze, but I guess it's an extra layer of bronze. So they're holy, and they were used, and they were still used as a reminder of the rebellion of Korah, that no man is supposed to go in who is not a son of Aaron, who is not an ancestor of Aaron. So a memorial that God had appointed Aaron and his family to be the priests. So you know that number H there, the nation flees. God consumes. Fire consumes. Fire consumes the 250 leaders. And J, God commands Eleazar to gather up the censers. Now, who's Eleazar? Aaron's, well, now his oldest son, but Aaron's third son, right? So he was one of the priests.
What was H?
Fled.
Or flees. The nation flees. So you would think that should be done with it, right? God had made himself loud and clear, right? That now there should be no more question. Would that be right?
You would think.
You would think. Apparently not. Apparently not. They're going to keep complaining. We're going to go to the next day, right? One day later, you think maybe a couple of years, or maybe the next generation, this will flare up again. The next day, it flares up again. Verse 41, but the morrow, all the congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron, saying, "You have killed all the people. You have killed the people of the Lord." Here we have again complaining. Complaining. So A, the complaint, Moses and Aaron have killed the people of the Lord. Who really killed the people of the Lord? Well, God,
Well,
as a result of their sin, right? As a result of their sin. God punished, God provided justice, but they're the ones who caused it. Verse 42. And it came to pass when the congregation was gathered against Moses and against Aaron that they looked toward the tabernacle of the congregation, and behold, the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. And Moses and Aaron came before the tabernacle of the congregation, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Get you up from among this congregation, that I may consume them as in a moment. And they fell upon their faces. What did God think of this new murmur that occurred the next day?
We're
Just
gonna take
fire
care of
them.
We're
that.
going to take care of this now. we're gonna wipe them off the face of the earth. All the remainder, all the remnant that are here. We're going to consume them in a moment. So B, God commands Moses and Aaron to separate from the people so he can consume the people. All right, Moses and Aaron, you may want to step back a little bit, because I'm going to finish this off once and for all. Now, again, what did Moses and Aaron do? Fall on their face. What would you do?
I would have stepped back.
That's right. All right, God, I'll do what you say. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. I'll step back and I'm okay with that.
He wouldn't have had nobody to lead, though.
That's right. You might have said that'd be nice. So yes, Moses and Aaron, they fell on their faces once again. I think that's important for all of us to recognize. Every time they're on their faces, every time they did not once say, "Okay, we agree with you, Lord." They're pleading for the people. They're pleading for the ones who strove against them. Verse 46, and Moses said unto Aaron, Take a censer and put fire therein from off the altar, and put on incense, and go quickly into the congregation, and make an atonement for them. For there is wrath gone out from the Lord, the plague is begun. And Aaron took as Moses commanded, and ran to the midst of the congregation. Behold, the plague was begun among the people, and he put on incense and made an atonement for the people. And he stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stayed. What does that mean? What happened?
He went out there to make an atonement for him to.
Right, yeah, he's taking one of the incense censers and going out with the incense and running among the people.
Some of them had already started that.
Yeah, the guy didn't waste any time starting the plague. People were falling left and right, and he's running in the midst. But what is incense a representation of? Prayer. Right, that's what he's doing. He's making intercession for the people, and he's running in between them, making intercession for them. He's putting himself in the way, right?
And he was old.
He was old, yes. He's about 90. He's Millie's age.
Well, I'm not going to run in front of y'all.
We need an example with Aaron.
She can
Run, man. She would have saved more people. All right, so as a result, how many died?
14,700.
14,700. So I guess Aaron got out there pretty quickly because, right, there's 2 million people out there, and only 14,700. That was the result of this plague. So we see that in verse 49. And they that died in a plague were 14,700, besides them that died about the matter. So this is in addition to those who died by the earth and by fire. And Aaron returned unto Moses unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the plague was stayed. So since incense is a symbol of prayer, Aaron in effect was appearing among the people to intercede in prayer for them. This act must have made it clear to all that one censer in the hand of a man of God far exceeds 250 in the hands of sinners. One mass burial.
They're not going to have anybody left here soon.
Yeah, I should add all this up to find out where we are. But they aren't going to have any all left. Remember, everybody 20 20 and older are going to die. So this is just part of that process.
At this rate, it's not going to take 40 years.
Shit. I guess Aaron could have sped it along a little bit, right? All right, Jude 1, or Jude verse 11, really. Jude verse 11 says, "Woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward, and perished in the gainsaying of Korah." So this rebellion is mentioned, we see it mentioned in Psalms, and mentioned in Jude. It's something to adhere to. We need to recognize God has appointed pastors, and we need to be careful not to get in the way of that authority. God has put them in that position. Korah, rightfully so, could have probably done Moses and Aaron's job, right? I mean, Moses and Aaron are men, just like Korah was. They're cousins, thing. But God did not appoint Korah. And Korah needed to recognize that. And Korah did not recognize that. You need to recognize God has appointed your pastor. It's not your position to step up over him. And so we need to be careful. God's still in control. God's still sovereign. God still appoints those who he wants to appoint. We're at chapter 17. And so we're going to go to start in chapter 17. We'll see how far we can go. Any questions on chapter 16?
What we're going to see, Peter.
Aaron makes atonement for the people. However, God's wrath had begun. Aaron makes atonement for the people. However, God's wrath had begun.
Okay, thank you.
So in chapter 17, God's going to reiterate that Aaron's position, that Aaron is the high priest. You would think you would have already done that in the previous chapter, but we're going to do it again in a different way. But God's going to take time to show and prove it. And so this is the story of Aaron's rod that buds. This is what this chapter is about, Aaron's rod that buds. Because Aaron's priestly authority had been challenged in chapter 16, the Lord now showed all the people that Aaron still retained that authority to the exclusion of the entire Hebrew nation. Aaron is my high priest, nobody else. And I will prove it to you again. So chapter 17, verse 1, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and take of every one of them a rod, according to the house of their fathers, all of their princes according to the house of their fathers, 12 rods, write thou every man's name upon his rod. And thou shalt write Aaron's name upon the rod of Levi, for one rod shall be for the head of the house of their fathers." And so here we have God commands everyone take a rod, basically your walking stick, your staff, and all your leaders come forward with their staff, right? And we're going to lay it in the tabernacle. Aaron is going to be in charge of head of what tribe? Levi. Now, I'm assuming there's 13 rods if we're including Manasseh and Ephraim as separate. So there are probably 13 rods laid out. And so what does a rod represent? Authority, yes. Our first one here, a symbol of authority and power. A symbol of authority and power. Remember Moses with his rod in Exodus chapter 4, verse 20. "And Moses took his wife and his sons and set them upon a donkey, and he returned to the land of Egypt, and Moses took the rod of God in his hand." Chapter 7, verse 9. "When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then shalt thou say unto Aaron, Take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent." It showed Aaron's authority, or Moses' authority. Moses' authority. And so you remember that story in front of Pharaoh with the rod, turning into a serpent. That's also a symbol of judgment. A symbol of judgment. Judgment. Number two, symbol of judgment. Yeah. Number one is a symbol of authority and power.
Okay, what's number 8?
Hey, God commands
Moses.
Aaron and the 12 princes to get a rod and write their names on it. God commands Aaron and the 12 princes to get a rod and write their name on it. Yes. So a symbol of judgment, Psalms 2:9, thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Proverbs 10:13, in the lips of him that hath understanding wisdom is found, but a rod is for the back of him that is void of understanding. Number 3. Chris, did you get that one?
I said fire.
Related to a scepter. Related to a scepter. Again, I guess that's a symbol of authority, a scepter or king scepter. King scepter. Ezekiel chapter 19, verse 14. And fire is gone out of a rod of her branches, which has devoured her fruit, so that she hath no strong rod to be a scepter to rule. This is a lamentation, and shall be for a lamentation. So rod, you're a symbol of authority. So we have our symbol of the rod. The rods are going to be laid out. B, the rods were placed in the tabernacle. And again, here's the requirement for choosing who's going to be God's, is that the one that blossomed would be God's appointed. The one that blossomed would be God's appointed. Numbers chapter 17, verse 4. And thou shalt lay them up in the tabernacle of the congregation before the testimony, where I will meet with you. And it shall come to pass that the man's rod whom I shall choose shall blossom. And I will make to cease from me the murmurings of the children of Israel, whereby they murmur against you. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel, and every one of their princes gave him a rod apiece, for each prince one, according to their fathers' houses, even 12 rods, and the rod of Aaron was among their rods. And Moses laid up the rods before the Lord in the tabernacle of witness. So here are these 13 rods going in. Each one had the name of the leader of that tribe, put into the tabernacle. It's going to be there overnight. The qualification of the one that's being chosen is that that rod will blossom. Now, what's interesting about a staff? It's dry. It's dead. It's dead, right? It's dead wood, right? There's no life in it at all. Okay, so put that in perspective. So there's nothing remarkable about a piece of wood, just dead wood, but a piece of dead wood that buds and blossoms and bears fruit, that's pretty remarkable, isn't it? And so this thing's going to happen in one night. It can be very remarkable. This is what God has chosen to show. All right, so what happens? You got to wonder, these other 12 leaders, they just saw what happened the previous day. Did they think they had any hope of being the leader?
I wouldn't think so.
Little dense up here.
Okay, I guess if you want us to participate in this nonsense, I know. Let's get this exercise over with. Verse 8, and it came to pass that on the morrow Moses went into the tabernacle of witness, and behold, the rod of Aaron for the house of Levi was budded, and brought forth buds, and bloomed, and blossomed, and yielded almonds. Now Moses brought out all the rods from before the Lord unto all the children of Israel, and they looked and took every man his rod. All right, so Aaron's blossomed, budded, and bloomed, and bear fruit. What was the only requirement? That it blossoms, it flowers, right? But his flowers and bears fruit, bears almonds.
Almonds are fruit?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I got So not only had the rod blossom, but it also had produced almonds. So you know me, I researched almonds.
I guess it's a fruit to them. It's a nut to us.
Well, no, not exactly. Not exactly. I learned a lot. The almond is a species of a tree native to the Middle East and South Asia, so good thing that's where it's from, because that's where Moses and Aaron were, they were in the Middle East, so that's where almonds are from. The almond is the name of the edible and widely cultivated seed of this tree. It is classified with the peach tree. The fruit of the almond is called a drupe, not a nut, but a drupe, consisting of an outer hull and a hard shell. Do I have some pictures? And so this is the fruit part of it, and then the outer shell, and then of course the seed inside. So it's called a drupe.
DR.
D-R-U-P-E. D-R-U-P-E. The fruit of the almond is a drupe consisting of an outer shell, outer hull, and a hard shell with the seed, which is not a true nut. Share.
It's in Africa.
Well, yeah, it's produced, but apparently it's native here.
Because we get a lot of
Yes.
fruits.
It's related.
And then when you dry, like, whatever it is, that's when you kind of like take stone and break it and eat what is in it.
Yeah, because they have it in Tobago too, by
Yeah.
the beaches. The almond trees.
When I saw the
drop
thing, I was
those
like,
long things, they look like plums.
Oh, really?
Like maroon. They look like plums. And when they fall, you could eat the skin off,
Oh,
it's juicy,
so
and the nuts.
Well, Claire is right. It's a part of the plum family. Plum, peaches, cherries are all the same. Plum, peaches, cherries, almonds are groups. Are all groups. So basically, a fruit with a hard shell and the pit, like a peach. So those are all examples. Cherries, peaches, plums, and almonds are all the same type of
Oh,
family.
You say cherries?
Cherries.
Cherries, peaches, and almonds? I mean,
Plums.
No, peaches and plums. Peaches.
So an almond's not a nut, it's a seed.
But it's a drupe. It's a drupe. It's a fruit.
It's like,
But they all
it's like
believe
something
what
I
we
eat
eat
that
as a
you
seed.
throw it away,
Yes.
or when you don't throw it away, you know, like, you break it,
And the nuts is
inside
inside.
that, that's where the nut is.
But we don't have more meats.
I know
Meat
that.
pots.
All right, the almond.
Seeds to throw away. I think it's
Yeah.
The almond is a deciduous tree growing 13 to 33 feet in height. The young twigs are green at first, becoming purplish when exposed to sunlight, then gray in their second year. The flowers are white to pale pink with 5 petals, and appearing before the leaves in early spring. Wild almonds are bitter. The kernel produces deadly cyanide, and eating even a few dozen in one sitting can be fatal. Well, wild almonds, so don't eat those ones that are on the beach. While wild almond species are toxic, domesticated almonds are not. The United States is the largest producer of almonds. California, actually, all our almonds currently come from California. California produces 80% of the world's almond supply. Coming from California. It's huge business, huge business.
Getting low now, with no water.
Like 500 million pounds, something like that. So the largest, and that's their largest export from California's almonds.
Wow.
In Israel, it's the first tree to blossom. And this was kind of amazing, and our time was really running out, but I want to get to this point here. When I was reading, I've grown some fruit and vegetables and stuff in the house, and the flowers, and after the flower comes the fruit coming out. And some of the little things I'm planting is a couple of weeks in between. And I was reading that between blossoms and when you're harvesting the almond is 8 months. I think that can't be right, 8 months? I mean, that's most of the year. But apparently that's true for the almond. The almond is the first tree to blossom, but it's the last thing to harvest. The first to blossom, the last to harvest. And so this spans the entire agriculture year. Some trees you're producing twice a year, right? Depending on where you are, you have 2 different harvests, but almonds take up the whole agricultural year.
So that's the significance of this budding on that vine.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And they're like, how can an almond bud overnight? It can't. It takes a whole 8 months for this to happen. And to go from a dead stick to almond, for that matter, right? But to go from blossom to almond, very awkward, significant. Very significant. So an almond's life cycle begins in February with trees producing white blossoms. Each blossom must be pollinated by a honeybee. Pollinated blossoms turn into fuzzy green hulls, popping out among the branches. Inside this protective hull, the almond shell and kernel are taking shape. During the warm summer heat, the hull splits open, revealing the almond shell. I'm pretty sure that has some sort of spiritual significance, that the almond itself splits itself open. But you can go that way. By September, the nuts are ready for harvest, and this is done by shaking the tree. They have a huge shaker, they just shake the tree and all the almonds fall down and they sweep it up. In Israel, they have a special holiday called that. Tu B'Shvat, which is literally, it's just a date. It just means the 15th of Shabbat. The 15th of Shabbat. So that's what the holiday is called. 15th day of Shabbat, which that day fell on this year on February 3rd. February 3rd. It's also called Rosh Hashanah La'elnot. Literally means New Year of the Trees. New Year of the Trees. For all intents and purposes, this is Israel's Arbor Day. Israel's Arbor Day. It's an unofficial holiday. It was developed. It was first started back in 1890. It's not based on. There's some scriptural basis, but there's no. It's not declared by God. It's not a holiday declared by God. So on this unofficial holiday, it involves planting trees and celebrating the purpose of trees. You know, much like our Arbor Day, they get all the school kids out, they plant trees, you know, that sort of thing. That's what happens here. But it happens on the blossom of the almond tree blossoms. So right when that's occurring, that's when this day is. So it is a celebration when the almond trees blossom in Israel. Tu B'Shvat is the date. It's also the date used to calculate the age of trees for tithing. The age of trees for tithing. Remember, back in Leviticus, we talked about it. When you plant a tree, you don't start tithing off the first fruit. You allow it to go 3 years, and then you tithe off of, I think it's the 4th year. And so they determine the age of the tree by this date. And so the tree is, was planted within this time, then that's a year, then another year, but this is the date that they determine by the age of the tree. So we'll talk about some of the biblical usages of almonds next week, but I think the most significant from myself, I didn't read this in any commentaries, but it's the first to blossom and the last to harvest. Doesn't that remind you of God is Alpha and Omega? He's the beginning and the end. He's the first and the last. And the almonds show up in several places. We'll get that next week, but remember it's the decoration on the candlestick, the old golden candlestick. It's all a picture of God. It's all a picture of God. So just very fascinating. And since there's a tradition that Aaron's rod would have blossomed almonds, half the almonds were bitter and the other half were sweet, to show that if you go rebel against God, you're going to get the bitter part, the cyanide. If you obey God, you'll get the sweet part of it. Now, I have some of the almonds from Aaron's rod. I'm not quite sure if they're bitter or sweet, so you can have some.
It was listed as one of the what kind of fruits? Did you mention that?
It's a part of the, it's a peach and cherries and plums.
No, he's talking about the blank. And
Yeah,
This
It's
is
the
one of the
best.
great foods.
that's the
We
blank.
could do these best too.
Oh, we're going to do, we'll
Yeah,
do that
you
next
can
week.
do-
Well, it's listed as one of the best fruits.
Oh,
One of the list of the best fruits. And then the second point there is carved into the golden candlestick. We'll cover that next week. What's that? Candlestick. Do we have any questions? Let's close in prayer. Dear Father, Lord, we thank you for today, Lord. We thank you that you are Alpha and Omega, that you are the beginning and the end, Lord, that you are a part of us and direct us, Lord. Lord, may we look to you, Lord. Lord, may we recognize your sovereignty, and Lord, we are just eternally grateful for your grace and redemption, Lord. And Lord, we just thank you for seeing that through all these stories recorded through Scripture, Lord, and that they all point to you. Lord, may you bless your people in Jesus' name.
Amen.
That's a